Hi Freelancer, welcome to today's episode of the Freelance Blueprint. I'm your host Lizzie, a freelance UX designer and digital nomad. Today we're joined by Kezia. If you're into branding, you probably have come across one of her carousels on Instagram. Kezia is the owner of Kizkopop, a studio that helps fintech underdogs define verbal identity. After studying marketing and graphic design, she realized she's more of a person of words and transitioned from offering brand strategy into verbal identity strategy. Most freelancers worry about the visual identity when it comes to branding, but many neglect the verbal identity. And that reflects not just in your online presence, but everything you deliver, even a tiny simple email to a client. In this episode, Kezia explains what verbal identity is, her journey of jumping straight into freelancing out of university, and how online resources massively helped her succeed in her freelance career. And also, this is the last episode of season 2 of the Freelance Blueprint podcast. I'm going to have a small break while launching a co-living in Sri Lanka, but let me tell you more about that at the end of this episode. First, let's get started with the conversation with Kezia. Hi Kezia, where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Newark, New Jersey.
Oh, nice.
States.
How is it over there?
It is hot today. It's been hot for the last few days, so I like hot weather, so I'm not complaining either.
Nice. If I wouldn't know anything about you, but I would meet your best friend, how would they describe you to me?
Are we talking about work or personal? Because two different. Okay, personal, they would say I'm funny. I've heard that I can be sarcastic, which I guess is true. I guess giving and caring and nurturing is what I've been told.
Nice. Nice. You were actually one of the first people that I came across on social media that was really just talking about verbal identity. A lot of people talk about branding in general or different kind of ways to market oneself, but you're very focused on that. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about what verbal identity is and what it entails?
So verbal identity is how the linguistic component of branding. So anything that has to do with words, writing, how the brand sound, how the brand speaks, that encompasses verbal identity.
So does this also entail like music and jingles? Like when you say how it sounds, or just the actual words?
Music and jingles, I think that's sonic identity, so I don't focus on that at all. But in terms of when you speak, how you sound when you speak, so like your voice and tone, the personality or the vibe, people get from your brand.
Mm-hmm. And how do you get on with helping someone find the verbal identity?
Verbal identity, it's not popular as visual identity. So I'm like developing my own like framework, my own steps as I go. And what I find is that before you develop your verbal identity, the foundation or the base is like your voice and your tone. You have to know like what your voice and your tone is, and that sets the stage for everything else. So when I start to develop someone's verbal identity, that's usually where I begin, the voice and tone.
How does this tie in? Would there usually be a brand identity before and you plug it on and base it off that? Or do you, because I also see you offer like full branding as well. What's your process? Do they usually come just for a verbal identity? Do they come for the whole package? How did you even define it? I think like it's very easy with visuals to say these are the colors, but with a verbal identity, how do you define it?
So verbal comes before visual. In order to know like what your visuals are going to be, you need the verbal already solidified and established. You don't know you need red, blue, purple, unless you know the personality. Personality is how you develop your voice and tone, which, as I mentioned, is the foundation. So once you have that developed, then we do the verbal identity, then you can do the visual identity. So I just focus on the verbal. I started out in visual, but one, visual identity that in that like space is very saturated, and two, I love writing. So I love writing, I love branding, I love marketing. So verbal identity is like the perfect space for me to sit in.
So you have a background in graphic design, brand strategy. What was it for you that prompted you to just focus on word? Was it because, like you just said, you realized you had a love for words and you want to do more in that? But also, I didn't even know it was a thing, really. I know that there's tonality, but just verbal identity, like, yeah, how did you make that shift?
So I started creating content on Instagram about 2 or 3 years ago, and a lot of content creation on Instagram is writing, and I write carousels. And I would do these like clubhouse audio calls with my friend Christo. He's also my business mentor. And he would challenge us to like summarize the entire call. Sometimes it's like 3, 4 hours. I'm like, how am I going to summarize this in like 8 slides? And he's like, keep it short, keep it brief, you know? So during that time, I basically developed that skill to like simplify long or complex information as short as possible, but still have the message behind it. So that was like my practicing ground to develop like into like a writer per se. And after doing a few carousels and they're doing really, really well, a few people are like, why don't you focus on writing on the branding side? I'm like, well, what does that look like? And Raul, he was like, maybe you're doing verbal identity. And I'm like, what's that? And that's how it got started.
It's quite interesting how some people find their passions out of accident. It was the same
Exactly.
for me. I actually wanted to do copywriting and somehow
Nice.
ended up in UX design. So it's
Nice.
quite funny how you just had a love for writing. People noticed that it's good and said, oh, just do verbal identity. What is
Yeah.
that?
So I was just like, oh, wow, this is good.
Yeah. So how did you educate yourself on that topic?
So I started to like look for books on verbal identity, and there aren't a lot. Like I said, it's not really a popular discipline, even though it does exist. There aren't a lot of books on it. So I spent like pretty much the first year just learning and connecting dots and paving my own path. So there is this one book by Chris West. It's called Verbal Identity, and it's really good. I think that was like my foundation for when I got started. And he talks a lot about voice, but I believe like verbal identity is more than voice. It encompasses a lot more elements, but he focused on voice and learning like brand voice and all these different subject matters. I was like, okay, this is where it is. And it's very different from copywriting. So, learning both at the same time is like, okay, I was able to distinguish, okay, what verbal identity is and what copywriting is.
So I have an idea of copywriting. I think I'm still wrapping my head around what exactly verbal identity entails because I know there's things like tonality. I also know that there are all of these guidelines of because when you create websites and stuff, then you get some copy and people are giving you the guidelines on how to name certain things. For example, we don't want to like actually it doesn't really exist in English, but in German, in French, you have a different way to say you, depending on if you're friends with the person or if that person is your boss. You would use a different word for it. So in those guidelines, it will show exactly that. Or if you use the active form rather than the passive form, things like that. Is that part of verbal identity or is that tonality? How would you structure those different sections?
It is part of verbal identity. Being that I have like the brand strategy background, I understand what language should look like from a branding level. I think with copywriting to me is like designers, and a verbal identity strategist is like a brand strategist. So it's just one level up from a copywriter. And I set the foundation for what the copy should look like, what it should sound like, how it should feel, and how it should come across.
So how do you actually make something feel a certain way through words?
Well, there are a lot of different elements. There's punctuation, different punctuations. Words have meaning, words have personality, words have tone. So I use like those elements or devices to create that feeling and that mood.
Nice. Do you remember how you got your first only verbal identity client?
Yes and no. I'm trying to think. The first one, I don't remember how I got them, but I remember doing the whole verbal identity system, and it was a lot. It was a lot. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work, you know? So, but it's interesting to like see how that brand evolved. It was interesting to see how like words really shape the direction, the visuals, and basically the entire brand communication system.
I think in general, people often underestimate the power of words. Saying something like, I love you, or love ya, or
Yeah,
like, how are you, or how are
yeah,
you really? You know, like people don't often notice how impactful certain words can be, depending
yeah.
in context and how you're saying them. When you changed from brand strategy and graphic design into verbal identity, how did you make that shift? Did you communicate that to your clients, or did it progress naturally, or did you actively have to reposition yourself as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer?
So one, I feel like I'm always repositioning myself because positioning is a tricky I guess, maneuver. So I feel like I'm always repositioning myself. And two, I have a decent sized community on Instagram and socials. So I just announced it there. And I would always share like what's happening, you know, any new updates. So it was just a matter of sharing it on social media, like, hey, I've been writing for a while. And, you know, a lot of people are like, I should focus on that. So this is what I'm going to do starting next week. And, you know, just bringing them along the process was basically how I did it.
Nice. How did you grow your social media?
I did a lot of carousels in the beginning, and social media engagement and the algorithm is definitely nothing like it is today. Today is like horrible. But during that time, I took advantage of the algorithms, I guess, goodwill. And I did a lot of carousels. I did a lot of guest posts on like larger accounts. And that's pretty much how I got my following. And, you know, the momentum just kept going. And I would do like content challenges where I would post like every day for like 2 weeks or every day for 100 days. And that was the momentum that catapulted me to like, I guess, Instagram fame and, you know, where my visibility and following are today.
Is that also where you're getting your clients from today?
Most of my clients have come from Instagram. They're like, "Hey, I
Hmm.
found you on Instagram." I'm like, "Okay."
Nice, nice. So you have Kizkopop. Is that, I don't know if I say it properly, Kizkopop?
That's perfect. Yeah, Kizkopop.
Yeah, okay. And that's your agency, or is it like a limited company? Do you work as a freelancer? Do you work as an agency? How do you promote yourself?
Kizkopop is like a studio because I work alone for the most part. So I call it a studio. And I know there are like differences, like slight nuances between agency, studio, firm, da da da. So I call it a studio because I work alone and much of what I do is very specialized. So I don't need a big team or anything like that. So I started as a studio, and it's just, you know, evolving, figuring out like what works for me. There are times where I will take on projects where I act as a freelancer, and there are times where, you know, I take on projects and I'm the studio. I work with fintech underdogs and I use language to make them scalable, accessible, and unforgettable. So I guess if anyone's in fintech or if you know of a fintech that could use an improved brand communication and improved brand presence through language, I'm your girl.
Nice. And how did you come up with the name?
Oh my God, it's such a hot mess. Lizzie is such a hot mess. And I came up with the name, I believe, the last year of grad school. Was it the last year of grad school? In like an entrepreneurship class. And my nickname is Kizzy. So I was like, it's gonna be like the first three letters of this, and it's Kiz and Co for company and pop because I make it pop. And I'm like, such a hot mess. but it's stuck. It's now trademarked, and that's what we're rolling with.
Well, if it helps my limited company, because I was like, I don't want to use my name because what if people think, oh, it's a woman, so we don't want to work
Right.
with her? Or what if people think, oh, it sounds like a solopreneur? So if I wanted to scale it to an agent, all these kind of things. So I thought, okay, what can I use that isn't overly used, that if people Google it, they don't find anything crazy?
Yeah.
And if I manage to build something like a brand, my brand will actually show up.
Right.
So my limited company is Monkeys Play Drums.
I like
so
that.
so I think you did well with your name.
I like that. And some people are like, oh, how do I pronounce this? And being that I also do naming as part of verbal identity, I've had the critics like, oh, the name sucks, but the logo's fine. And I'm like, shut up. Like, get
I
over
don't
it.
think actually it's that bad. Like I would not have thought of like it's probably quite unique. You can't really, and it's
It
easy
is
enough to
unique.
remember it when you type it into Google that you
Right.
will probably not find something else that gets confused with it. So
Exactly. I'm the only one in the world with that brand name. So, hey.
yeah. So for people who are looking into their branding and also their verbal identity, what are like the common mistakes people make, or what are the things that they forget to do when they start working on it?
I think the common mistake people make is not defining the personality. Like, who are you as a brand? What do you believe? Like, how do you perceive your industry? Like, who are you? So I think a lot of people forget to develop that, and they get caught up in the hype of like, oh my gosh, I got to get on social media and do this and do that. But there's no personality. So when it comes to brand communication, like it's all over the place. And I think that's one of the biggest barriers to effective communication. And it's also the most I would say neglected, I guess. And
Mhm.
people don't think it's as important as it really is.
If someone is working on it, like it's important to look into the personality, one's values, but I still don't quite understand how, based on the values, you create a verbal identity. Like, is it something that where you say, we don't say we do, we say we make? Well, I don't know, I don't know what there is, but how do you represent someone's values, someone's personality in words, like so that they can actually have those guidelines and then build their own sentences, their own headlines from it? How does this work?
So I believe I did this as a carousel on Instagram, like how to write in different personalities. And if I remember correctly, say for instance, you have like a ruler brand. They're more authoritative, they're more commanding, they're more refined. Like how you speak, the type of words you use, like there are different words that encapsulates those personality traits. So it's just a matter of finding out like who are you as a brand? Who are you, like what's your personality? And then constantly using those words to communicate to drive that I guess holistic brand image.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of like values, not saying your values are separate from your personality because it's part of who you are. It's like hard to explain because like your values and like how you communicate and what you believe, it kind of shapes how you communicate and who you are as a brand. So there is some connection between the two, but I wouldn't say how you communicate is driven by your values, if that makes sense.
Mm. At what stage of their career do you think is it worth it for a freelancer to really look into the personal brand, the verbal identity, the visual identity? What stage is it worth it? Let's say they are getting clients, they can pay the bills, so they're not a completely new to freelancing person. But let's say they have a couple of years, maybe they now have finally some money on the side to reinvest in themselves. What stage is a good stage to look into it?
This is a tricky question because one, I don't focus on personal branding, but speaking from a branding perspective, I would say the first stage would be when you first speak or write. Like once you start to speak or write and communicate with a public facing audience, that's when you should consider getting your verbal identity together. Now, I understand that it may not be economical for some people. Branding is expensive, but just do the best you can. Try to be consistent with how you communicate. And for personal branding, it's kind of easier because you are yourself. And obviously, you have a personality, you know who you are. So, I guess, starting out is be consistent. And once you can develop it professionally, then do that.
Did you ever come across a project or a client that you worked with or worked on where their personality just didn't match their verbal identity, their tone, where it was off?
All the time. All the time. That's why they come to get it fixed. But I have worked with personal brand client where how she communicated on social media, it was kind of all over the place, but it was still like her personality. But it's also weird because she's not an all over the place type of person. So doing like a surface level assessment, it's like, okay, so what's your personality? Like, who are you? And, she said, oh, I'm like this, I'm like this. Okay, so this is how we need to communicate. Because, yeah, it's just most of the time it's all over the place and it just needs to be re-guided or yeah, guided into like a more structured thing.
Mm-hmm. I recently had a podcast guest. She does brand strategy, and she was talking about when she delivers the designs or like whatever she puts together for the client and presents it to them, that some of them even cry, which must be like weird, but also super nice feeling that someone cries based on something you've done. And also another guest, and she was actually one of the clients of the brand strategist. She was saying how it was like therapy for the business because of the questions that you get asked that you really have to think about, where you think you should know the answer about this because this is you and your brand, but you actually don't realize all the values you have or specific ways of how you work. How do you get on with someone who, like that client that you mentioned, who was very different to her, like her personality was so different to her verbal identity? How do you find out, okay, this is actually what you are really like, and because of that, this is how you should be communicating? How do you go through that process?
To start, I do a brand personality workshop. It's about 2 to 3 hours long. And I just go through a series of like questions on behavior, on beliefs, attitudes, and things like that, and really get under the hood of like who this person is, at the core level. Like, how do you feel about this? How do you think this should be? And just like really getting to know the person beyond what we see. And even for them, they're like, oh, wow, this is so like therapeutic. Like, I didn't know I know these things, talking through it, helped me to get clarity on who I am and what I need to do. So I usually just do that through a brand personality workshop.
Did you ever do one of those for yourself? So with someone else on yourself?
Did I do it for myself? No, but I have a good handle of who I am and who Kizkopop is as a brand. I've been doing brand strategy for like, wow, 4 years before I switched, and I've done quite a few brand strategies. So I just know what it should sound like, what it should look like. Not that you should work on yourself because, doctors don't operate on themselves, but I just have like a good understanding of what it is and what I need to do, what I should do, and I just do it.
Would you consider yourself self-motivated? Because like for me, I get the most done when I'm incredibly stressed, and I get all the things done that are on my 1 day list because the main thing that I should be doing scares me so much that I just do all the other things. So I still feel productive, but I'm still stressing out because I'm not doing the thing that I should be doing. And
Yeah.
I know that those people exist, that they have a to-do list and they just how do they call it? Like eat the frog, do the main thing first and then everything else. But I'm just not like that. So how do you motivate yourself to get tasks done and yeah, tackle your to-do list?
So I'm still struggling with this, and I haven't figured out like my own rhythm, like, how I get tasks done. But I do like, I found what works for me is to have like an agenda or an action plan for the day. Like 9 o'clock, I'm gonna do this. 10 o'clock, I'm gonna do that. 11 o'clock, take a break, then get back to it. And I just like organize my day based on like the tasks that I have to do for that day by like to the minute. And I find that that works. Does it always work? No, because you get distractions. You got to reply to an email or you get a phone call and whatnot. But I would say I'm self motivated because, as an entrepreneur or like a freelancer, like there's nobody coming to motivate you. You have to get up and get it done. You have to get up and do it yourself. So I think I'm highly self motivated, and it's just a matter of, do I want to do this now or do I want to do this later? So,
Mm-hmm. Do you ever end up pushing things to later? Because for me, it's like, I know if I don't do it now, I'm going to sit until very, very late. But I'm still doing all the other things that don't have a deadline or are less important.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so that's the thing where I really, really struggle to actually do the important tasks. How do
Mm,
you, or are you someone also like, okay, I have a deadline, I have to do this now? Or
yeah.
are you self-motivated enough that even if you knew you can deliver this in a month's time, but if it's out of the way, it's out of the way, that you'll do it?
Yes, I'm a big procrastinator, and there's certain things I enjoy doing and certain things I don't enjoy doing, and those I put off.
Mhm.
And I also notice like certain foods affect my mood and my attitude. So if I know I need to get something done, I know, okay, like this is how we're going to eat this week because, this week is focus week and we got to get stuff done. So I don't necessarily indulge in certain types of pleasure food. And then there are times where I'm just like, okay, I can put this off. I know I can put it off because I can work like overnight the next day and get it done. So,
Mm. I think that's such a common thing for freelancers because you don't have this person who holds you accountable, except
right,
for the client's deadline. But then also often it's not a real deadline. Like nobody's actually
yeah,
going to die if you don't meet that time.
right.
Have you always been like self-driven, even when you procrastinate? I mean, you still get things done when they need to, like you probably always delivered on time. You seem that kind of person to me. But have you ever been like in a permanent job? Because you said you went from university and that's actually when Kizkopop already started. Like, did you have a permanent job at some point or did you start your own business straight away?
I remember starting my own business straight away. And I wish I had a job, because you learn a lot of things that are so small you don't think they're important, but when you start your own business, you're like, oh wow, I wish I knew how to do that, or I wish I understood, what this means. So I wish I had like a job right out of college, just to learn certain skills and certain behaviors, pick up certain mindsets. But I started Kizkopop right after school, and it's just, it has been just a matter of figuring things out, figure out what works for me, what I like to do, what I don't like to do, and that motivational mindset where I'm driven. I think it started in grad school because grad school is very rigorous, and the teachers are not like checking up with you, babying you to make sure you get your assignment done. Like you have to get it done, and if you get less than a B for my school, like you're kicked out the program. So there's
Oh,
no
wow.
foolishness. There's no joking around. There's no, oh, I'll just do it whenever. Like you have to get it done. So a lot of my drive and persistence, I guess, I developed during grad school. And, thankfully it served me well so far.
Did you have a mentor who guided you through the process of building your business, or did you learn everything the hard way and did everything yourself?
I started out learning everything the hard way, and I believe it was during COVID where I saw like a lot of Christo's videos. And Christo, he's the CEO of the future, and the future is like educational platform that teaches creatives how to run a business. So I discovered what he does during COVID, and then I joined his community, and I've been there ever since. So a lot of what I know about like content creation, social media marketing, things like that, sales. Oh my God, I hate sales. Sales and all this stuff I learned from Chris and the teachers that come into his community to teach us.
I feel you so much when you said I hate sales because like I'm the same, but unfortunately if you're self-employed, you need them. Otherwise,
Oh
like,
gosh.
yeah. How
Yeah.
do you get over the cringiness, over the uncomfort of sales? How do you deal with it?
I'm trying to figure out how to get over it because I am not over it. And I think I avoid it to my own detriment because it's just not comfortable. And, everyone's like, oh, you just need to practice. You just need to learn more. Like, I'm not a sales girl. I don't want to sell you anything. So, no, it's not for me. So, if anyone knows like where I can find a good salesperson to help me sell, like, please.
I've been thinking that wouldn't it be easier to hire someone, but then you have to train them on how you actually work because the client will want to know those things. And
Yeah.
also you will have to build a certain trust that they don't say anything or oversell to your client or commit to certain deliverables that you're not capable of doing within the time frame that you have with other like things like that. So I'm hesitant. I would love to just outsource sales, but at the same time I'm hesitant because it sets the expectations for your client. And what if they're really, really good at it? And then I have more clients than I can actually deal with. And yes, I can subcontract and these kind of things, but then I want to build a relationship with my client and get to know them, like get to know their problems well. I don't want to outsource everything. I still want to be involved in the project. So, I mean, also that's a problem that would be nice to have too much work.
Right.
Um, which is a problem I've had a few times, and it's a good problem, but it's every time it happens, it's just so overwhelming. And yeah, sometimes I feel like, why do people recommend me pause for a bit? And then you don't have work, and it's like, so why is nobody coming? So it's very
Right.
difficult to have a sales process where they come the certain amount of times. Did you ever outsource your sales?
I've never outsourced it, but I'm certainly thinking about it because I just don't like it. I don't want to get good at it. I don't want to be an expert sales. I don't want to do it. I want to
Mm.
write. I don't want to sell. So I am thinking about it. And as in terms of building a relationship with that client, the sales is just getting them in the door. And once they're in the door, I think like we can build that relationship. So not having that conversation with them personally on the first call isn't a deterrent for me because you still have time to build that relationship. But I know they will be better served if, there's someone on that first call who knows what to do, knows how to speak, knows how to give them the information they need to make a right decision. Maybe it ain't me. So
Mm.
I'm like, no.
Yeah. But I had it a few times, and that's one of the reasons why I also want to do this sales call. Like, I feel like for UX design, it's not really a sales call. It's more like, okay, you have this project. Am I the right person for it or not? Because maybe you want something on a massive scale and you need branding first. You don't have a strategy. You don't have personas. You don't have like a basis. Or sometimes, yeah, anyway. So it's more about figuring out if I'm the right fit for that project. But I've had it before where some people would cold outreach to you for SEO, or they would, like an accountant, for example. I was quite happy with my accountant, and then they just messaged me and said, oh, can we just hop on a call to see if we can offer something? And I was like, I've been with her for 2 years. Maybe there's something better out there. I do like her, but she's also been the first accountant I've had. So actually the second, but they went through redundancy. So I got her, but it was the same company. And she was so much better than the first one. So I thought, yeah, maybe I'll just listen to it because I don't know what's normal. So maybe I think I get a good service, but I don't. And then on that call, I talked to this person who seemed to be really, really good at what they're doing. And okay, I transfer, I go to the other accountant because they offered exactly what my previous accountant did, plus a few more things for a lower price. So it's like, okay, no brainer, let's go with them. But the problem was I didn't work with the person I was with on the phone. I worked with a separate team, and they were not as thorough as him. They were not as, or maybe he was just really good at selling. But once I was through the door, I didn't feel like this was the right door. This is, I'm in the wrong room. This is not what I was told is behind this door. And it didn't happen just with that. It happened with the SEO, with the accountant, it happened with some SEO. I very quickly changed back to my accountant and told her I will never leave her again. So I think that's also when it's tricky, because sales is, like you say, it's like that going through that door and you don't really know what's inside. And the person is at the door trying to lure people in or tell them what's inside. And then once they're in, it feels like they're trapped, they can't get out. And if you don't get the person who really transparently says, this is behind this door, this is what you get, this might be for you, maybe it's not, then maybe you get all of these clients because they might get paid only on sales. So they want to convince them. And then maybe you have this, not even a client in the room, it's just some other thing that you don't want in the house and you don't know how to deal with it. Yeah, it's quite tricky. But then if you don't like sales calls, how do you get your clients through the door?
Well, I've gotten clients like I said from Instagram, so a lot of them have been watching or following for a really long time, so they have an idea of what I can do, who I am, because I am the face of Kizkopop. There's some familiarity, yeah, with me, with how I work, because I do talk about that sometimes. So when they come in, sometimes it's not a hard sell. They just know, like, I know what I want. I know you can help me. When can we start? And I love those clients. But you have the ones they come in and I don't know. And that is like, okay, this is not easy.
Yeah.
Like, did you watch, like, did you read this carousel? Did you read the website? Did you read this? Did you read that? Because I don't want to do that. But that's a me problem. I just, going back to positioning, just need to strengthen my positioning so I don't get like this massive pushback that I do get some from time to time.
I guess it is helpful that you have a social media presence and you actually show what you're doing online and also
Yeah.
give tips on that. I also like read through your carousels. I quite enjoy them. And it's like, oh yeah, I didn't look at it from this perspective. Or yeah, I learned something new. So it's quite nice. So I guess for the client, it shows your authority. It shows what you're capable of, like exactly what you just said. But then it's also interesting that people come on a sales call with you probably through social media, but then are still not sure if you can do what they're looking for. Sometimes clients feel like, okay, I have a problem with this, or I need to solve this, or I need to sort this out, but then they don't really know what they need. So they think they want something, but it's not really what they need. Or I had a client recently and they wanted their website redesigned. And it's like, yeah, I can't do it, but why? Oh, because we have this new software and we have this product. And it's like, okay, but then you don't need a redesign. You just need a few more pages on it. Oh, but yeah, if we do it, we might as well. It's like, yeah, you might as well, but do you have the time for it? Do you really want to do a whole rebrand, or do you just need a couple landing pages on those things, test it, and then see how it goes, reshuffle the sitemap, and that's fine. And I think some people would tell me, oh, you should upsell, you should sell this, you should get a deal with a brand strategist and do this, that. And it's like, yeah, but the client will be overwhelmed with it, especially when they already come to you not sure what it is that they need. And taking advantage of someone and overselling, yes, if it makes sense. I definitely say I can't do this website without, and that also happened to another client. And I told them I can redesign it, but I need more information on it. I need to know, what do you want to communicate? What do you want? What's the goal for your website? There's no point in me just, I can make it look different, but
Yeah.
why? How do you deal with those clients? Or are you lucky enough that, okay, maybe they look for the door and then they just disappear again?
Well, I haven't had too many of those types of clients where they're just like, they don't know at all what they want. I do have the clients that come in and they're like, I know something's off, and I know it has to do with like messaging or language. And It's just my job to identify what the diagnosis is, like what is specifically off and what do you need. So I don't really have anyone that come in where they're so clueless and so off. And I want to like get to the point where they come in and they already know, okay, this is what I think I need. And then when I say this is what you need, like, okay, yes, let's go with that. Like, I don't want to do the back and forth and well, what if this and oh, someone else is like, I don't like just don't. And I believe like you can make your sales process and your sales call whatever you want them to be. And I don't want to do that. So
Did you always have this entrepreneurial mindset where you were like, did you grow up in a household where maybe your family were entrepreneurs, or were they more in the typical 9 to 5 office job? Because I find it so interesting often. There are certain patterns with freelancers. They're often procrastinators, or they're
yeah.
often a little bit all over the place, but very passionate about something, or they cannot not work. They cannot take a whole week off not
Yeah.
looking, not opening the laptop. And often I see people that, yeah, they just grew up. It was just never a question. Like, oh, all my parents, my dad has a business, my mom did this. What was it like for you?
It's so interesting. I grew up in Kingston, Jamaica, and I remember like my grandmother, she had this like shop where she would sell, is like I guess you would call it like a bodega, or yeah, bodega. She would sell like little snacks for people in the neighborhood. And it didn't like sink in until she passed. Like, oh my gosh, she was an entrepreneur. Like that's what she did. And growing up and see her be that and run the shop the way she did, I think I learned a few things from her being her own entrepreneur in her own sense. At the time, never heard of the word entrepreneur. I heard of the word entrepreneur when I migrated to America and I was in college. So I didn't know what an entrepreneur was, what it meant. And looking back, I'm like, she was definitely an entrepreneur. And I see how like I embody some of her traits and her skills and her, behavior and her way of thinking as I go through my own entrepreneurial journey. And it's just like, wow, it's always been there, but I never identified it until recent.
Are there any certain traits that you feel like are useful for both having a shop and working online on digital things and having Zoom calls? I think it's quite different because when you have a shop, you're dependent on footfall, whereas now the whole world can, like, your clients can be all over the world. So are there specific traits that you feel like you got from your grandmother that help you now?
Definitely. And the traits, I wouldn't say they're like tangible, they're more like intangible. So it's the drive. Like she would get up, nobody told her like, hey, you have to get up and open the shop. She would just get up, open it, set up, and sell. So I guess it's like drive, motivation, persistence, the ability to keep going even when things don't look like it's going anywhere, or you don't look like you're making any progress, but you still have to have that belief and that faith, to keep going because, it can get better. So I think like just drive, persistence, motivation, belief, faith, and just, all those things that are ingrained in entrepreneurship.
But not the selling.
No. I mean, she had a business. She was selling things that people actually want. So it's a no-brainer. So I guess I just need to figure out how to make it appear like, okay, you really need this.
Maybe that's the trick, like get people to want it so much, like you said, those clients that are like, yeah, I've been following you, this is what I want, let's work together, when can we start? Those are the clients that you want. And it's this
Yeah.
weird feeling of, it's not really that I dislike sales, I think I dislike where it feels like a loss if the client doesn't buy from you or doesn't book you as the freelancer. It feels like I've done something wrong, when in reality it could be that maybe it's just not the right project. There are
Already,
certain yeah, like there can be so many different things that maybe you're currently booked and they want to start ASAP. Maybe they use Adobe in UX, for example. I use Figma. Maybe all the systems are in Adobe and they don't want to transition, but it feels like a fail, even though it's not really, because both of you figured, okay, we looked into each other's stores and it's not somewhere where we want to go. It's not what I need. But having those clients already keen on working with you, do you just let social media do that work for you? Or are there other things where you realize that those clients that come directly to you, they have something in common?
So I try to let social media do the work for me. And one of the things that I learned from Chris is like your content should do the heavy lifting. Like your content, your marketing should do the heavy lifting so that when prospects come through the door, you're not like working so hard to sell them. They're already warm and ready to take action. So attracting cold prospects, no bueno for me. So yeah, your social media, your marketing, your content should already be weeding them out and qualifying them.
Do you do any sales posts? Because I'm also working with a coach right now, and he is saying you're not promoting anything you offer. If I wouldn't know from our coaching sessions that you offer coaching for freelancers or that you have a finance course, I wouldn't know based from your content. So let's put something in there. And I also had a podcast recording the other day with someone who was saying, I just don't do any marketing. I realize I have all of these things, but people don't know. But there's this weird thing that as soon as I don't post to just give away free information for freelancers, but where I feel like, oh, maybe if you like this information, maybe you are interested in X, Y, and Z of what I offer. But then at the same time, it feels like, but that's salesy, you know? Even though, and I know so many people talk about the mindset shift of you're helping them. Imagine where you were when you started. I was like, I wish I would know what I know now. I would have loved to buy this course or do this mentoring. But back then I was also, should I already invest in myself, So I would probably, if I would have been on a sales call with someone, had to work more on the mindset shift of, yes, it's okay to invest your money into learning something that you really need to know, rather than, I'm being sold. Like I would probably have felt sold to, And I think that's what I'm scared of, that someone feels sold to. So how do you feel when you post social media content? Like you have a lot of informational content, but I don't think you post a lot about, oh, you can work with me. At least it doesn't feel like this to me. Do you have those type of posts?
So that's a good question. When I started out, I did not do that at all. I just felt it was salesy, it was tacky, it's sneaky. So I did not do that at all. And a lot of times people would be like, okay, this is what I need. Like, does she offer this? Being in the community, people be like, oh, well, you have to sell yourself because how do people know? And da da da. And it took a while to get to a point where I'm comfortable to present the information or the content. And in my caption, I have it like, oh, this is what I do, and this is how I can help you, at the bottom as like rolling credit, I guess. So, after they read the content, they see like, oh, okay, so this is what she does. I have had a few people reach out, but they're not the clients that I want to work with. So that didn't go anywhere. It's not really selling, but letting them know like how they could work with me.
Yeah. I mean, I recently just started PS, by the way. I have this,
Yeah.
which I feel like feels less like, oh, buy this from me now,
Yeah.
It's more like, if you need it, it's there. But even that feels a bit, but yeah, maybe I just need to get over myself and
Yeah.
be a bit more on marketing.
I don't like to tell them what to do. I think consumers are smart enough to know what to do based on what they need. So I
Yeah.
just tell them like, I can offer XYZ if you need it. Like they know what to do.
If anyone is thinking of their brand identity, like not necessarily brand identity, because you say you're very, very just doing verbal identity, what do you think, if they're still thinking, oh, I'm not sure if I'm at the right stage or not, if anyone's on the fence, what would you tell them?
If you're on the fence, I would ask, are you recognizable without your visuals? If you're not, then you need a stronger verbal identity.
Nice. That's a good question. Cool. There are 3 questions that I ask all of my guests, and
Okay.
one of them might not apply to you because you said you've never really had a full-time job. But so let's maybe rephrase it. Would you ever take on a permanent job?
Absolutely. Especially right now, where it's like the algorithm's acting weird, like, the reach isn't there as much as it used to be. I am like in this weird space where I'm trying to figure out like my next move, do I want to stay in verbal identity? Do I want to move on to something else that's more challenging? I love writing. It's, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's not like a big challenge for me, so still just trying to figure things out. So I would definitely take on a full-time job if the opportunity presented itself.
Yeah, I think especially if you never had a permanent job, it's still, you learn a lot from it. There's a lot that you can get from it.
And I'm curious, like, what is it like, to, yeah.
Well, I'd be interested that if you take one on, how you feel with it. Because I think once you had that freedom to make all decisions by yourself,
I know.
It would be very hard to go back.
Be like, do this, do that, like.
Yeah. Cool. Second question. If you could go back in time, let's say maybe when you moved to the US for college, what would you today tell your past self?
Don't be scared. Everything is going to work out the way it's supposed to. You may not know what the outcome is, but just trust that what's for you will be for you.
Oh, nice. Nice. And if you fast forward 5 years into the future, think of who you're going to be then. Maybe the algorithm will have picked up by then. Maybe you will have repositioned yourself 5 more times. Maybe you will have had, or maybe you are in a permanent job. What do you think your future self would tell you today?
Good job.
Nice. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I really enjoyed this.
This was fun.
For the listeners who want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
So you can find me running my mouth on Instagram. My handle is at Kizkopop, Kiz or Zkopop. I'm on LinkedIn as myself, Kezia Israel MBA. I'm on Threads and I'm on Twitter, but Instagram and LinkedIn are probably the best platforms to find me.
Nice. I'll add all of those in the show notes. And yeah, thank you so much for your time, Kezia. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. This was fun. Thanks for having me. Bye, guys.
I learned so much about verbal identity, and I hope you did too. You can find all the links about Kezia in the description of this podcast, including her Instagram and link to book her for your own verbal identity. As you may know, I'm a big advocate for making freelancing work for your lifestyle, not the other way around. And this year, my partner and I are going to open a co-living in Sri Lanka. I want to give this as much focus as possible, which is why I'll take a break from the Freelance Blueprint podcast. But don't worry, there'll be more episodes in the future. And while working on the co-living, instead of 1 hour-long interviews, I'll share shorter episodes, concentrating on one freelance tip at a time. Mainly because it's difficult to find a quiet place for an hour with the monkeys and peacocks in the background. If you want to learn more about the co-living, have a look at the description of this podcast. It's a place in Hirikatia in the south of Sri Lanka, and I hope to see you there one day. If you liked this episode, please leave a review and hit the follow button. This will also notify you once I'm back with new episodes. That's all from me, and I can't wait to be back later this year with more freelance tips for you. Until then, feel free to check out any of the past 30 episodes, and of course, you can always see what I'm up to on Instagram. See you in the next season. Bye!